Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I'm sitting here with my friend Zach Seegers, providing all your CU Buffs articles, everything you would ever want from CU football. Zach, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Sweet. I'm doing great. How are you, Joey? I was closing tabs, worried about that. It says my internet's bad, but then my computer says my internet's good. So I don't know what the problem is. I hope we have a smooth show, but I'm worried about it. We'll see if we make it through.
We're good. We're good. We're good. Don't worry about it. We're out here. But anyway,
We're
I,
out here.
I'm doing well. I'm excited. It's Friday. I have plans for later
It's a
today.
wad pod.
What was that?
I said it's a wad pod.
It is.
On
Yeah,
drop
yeah.
throwback.
And yeah, I got some things planned. I'm gonna go grab some food. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, extremely excited. It's Friday, but we have a really good episode here today of your guys' questions. We have your guys' questions and stuff, everything like that, which is going to be a blast. You guys always ask really great questions.
Thank you, by the way.
We're just switching graphic after graphic.
I didn't click that. Did
I
you?
didn't click that either. Yeah. What the heck is going on?
Here, leave it on the first one. We'll just leave it on the top one. I don't have I can't find the basic. Here we go. Perfect. This is what we want.
There we go. There we go. Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Behind the scenes there, everybody. Sorry.
Start from the top. We're clearly missing Bree. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah. You can see how Bree really holds the show together right now.
But yeah, you guys always ask really great questions, and I'm excited to get into it. Mailbag episode. We have a few people in the comments right now. We got Cal, Samuel, Castro is in the chat. But Zach, let's get right into it. Let's go to our first question here, and I will get to it. Let's talk about this one. Frankie, friend of the podcast, my co-host every single Thursday. Make sure you check that out. Name a player you think is overrated or underrated by Broncos country. Zach, who do you think?
Yeah, I thought this one was great. So I think there's like some basic answers, like maybe PJ Locke or whatever. But I was trying to think like who is really truly, I think, at this point underrated. And I know I'm going to upset two of the three people in the chat with one of these. Randy Gregory came to mind, I think, at this point. I think he was really, you don't think so?
I'll argue it. You think he's underrated or overrated?
Underrated at this point.
Oh, okay. I totally agree with you on underrated. I thought you said
most of what I've seen about Randy Gregory has been negative, and I get it. The injury problems reared their head. Maybe you wish Von Miller was signed instead, or whatever. Maybe you wish they didn't sign a big name edge at all, or Hassan Reddick, obviously, given hindsight, would have maybe been the best option. But I don't know. When I saw him on the field, I saw a really difference-making high buy, says D Bronx. I saw a difference-making edge rusher. I saw a difference-making pass rusher, and I think that's really valuable. The injury stuff is a concern, and I get that. It will remain a concern. Maybe it'll always be a concern. But I do think it should be noted. He hasn't had the chance to be super injury prone because of the drug suspension things, which aren't as much of a problem now. Now, yes, in the 2 full seasons since then, he's missed a lot of time due to lower body injuries. That probably won't get better with age, but I don't think it's like he's going to miss 12 weeks, year in, year out type of thing. I think he probably could have came back this season down the stretch and made an impact for this team if they were competitive. I don't know. I feel like people are a little too low on him now when I do think he is a really good player.
There you go. Yeah.
Matt Henningsen, another. That one was my really dark horse one. Sorry. And then overrated, I think you can go a lot of different ways. But Matt Henningsen, I think people will start to catch on next year, and then 2025 is when people will really be like, oh, this is a really good defensive lineman or solid defensive lineman, rotational piece for the Denver Broncos. Under or overrated, I think, is a lot easier. I think Broncos fans are quick to identify the good players, maybe even a little too quick. So it's a little easy to do overrated. Latavius Murray and like Chase Edmonds jumped out here to me immediately. I have seen a lot of like RB2 talk for either of these guys, and I don't think either should be held, or for both of those guys, and I don't think either should be held in that esteem.
Well, there you go. Yeah. You know what? I agree with you on your Randy Gregory take because it is pretty much, and Cal said it. The issue is injuries. Like, he's a damn good player when he's on the field, and that's been consistent, not just this last year. You brought up just this last season. That's been throughout his entire career. When Randy Gregory is on the field, no issues whatsoever. The injuries are the issue. There's ways of looking at it where you are incorporating both those thoughts. He's not a bad player, but the injuries are an issue. So I do think underrated as well. So just because of how he's being talked about. An overrated player for me, I would say Alberto, honestly, like just because of how much defense Alberto gets.
You're on an offensive this week on your
I mean, a little bit. It's just because it's like it's like I see 12 tweets a day of people being like, Alberto is the most underutilized player of all time. And I really sit back there and watch him. And it's like, okay, he ran really fast at the combine. That's nice, but he doesn't really move that fast on the field. Like, what are we doing here? Like, he's good at breaking tackles. I will give him that, unquestioned. But to me, he's talked up to be this crazy, athletic, receiving tight end, when to me, all of his best reps come as a receiving tight end in the red zone. He's a big body. That's how he wins most of the time. He's not consistently getting open. He's not consistently even catching the ball. I don't understand why there's such big defense for him. I really don't. When we literally saw Greg Dulcich step in and immediately just be 100% better. And then you saw the coaching staff. It wasn't just Alberto started to get weaned out, and then it was just like, hey, Greg Dulcich is back. You are on the bench. You are not even suiting up anymore. Like that should be a little telling, I think. So I would say Alberto. I definitely would say Alberto.
I think Alberto's a really good pick. The chat is pretty active in their thoughts about Alex Singleton. We have two people, D Bronx and Cal, saying Alex Singleton is overrated. Saying I had Alex Singleton, he's good in his limited role, but feels like Broncos fans think he's a good all-around linebacker. Right. And Cal saying Singleton might be the most overrated person in America based on fans, while Samuel Castro is rushing to his defense and saying Singleton is underrated. Do you think Singleton's more underrated or overrated?
Okay, I'll say this. He was better, much better than I thought he would be when the Broncos signed him. But I think people need to also look at the situations Evero put him in, because Singleton in specific was a guy I always was looking at and was like, Evero always has him in position to win. What Singleton did well, Evero did that to the max. He was blitzing a lot. He was good at that. That's one thing he could do is blitz. He could get after the quarterback. And if you just want him to run and chase in the run, really good at that too. Now his issues come more in space, right? It's when he's working in space and in coverage, frankly. And it's just like they limited that. They did limit that. His best reps you saw in the explosive reps were him running and chasing and blitzing. And Evero did that a ton. So it's somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure if he's overrated or underrated. I guess it depends who you're talking to, as the chat is displaying here. He's good at a few things, but I also think that in those areas, not very good. I don't think if you moved him to a different team this last year and you used him like some think he should be used, you wouldn't see the same results. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. He's good moving forward, maybe not so much moving backward. Yeah, I think he's definitely overrated by some. Like, he finished high in the team MVP voting this year. He finished he got an all-pro vote. He was one of 3 Broncos to get an all-pro vote this year. I don't know. I think a lot of people don't know what they're doing when they watch linebacker. I don't think he's A bad player. I think he's fine. I love D-Bronk's comment right here, actually. I think he's putting it perfectly. He was a good downhill linebacker making minimum salary. Thinking he's more than that means he's overrated, in my opinion. And I'd agree. I think he was good for what he was, though. So I think, generally speaking, he's overrated, probably, is where I'd fall on that.
Yeah, yeah. Underrated coming into the season. I think a little overrated at the end. That's well probably how I would say it there. But let's move on to our next question here, Zach. We have one from Denny. He says, as we saw in the Super Bowl, special teams can be the difference in tight games. I'm confident Sean Payton will hire competent coaching, but in my opinion, we need to upgrade the specialists. How do you guys feel about Waitman and McManus moving forward? Would you sign draft replacements? Zach, what would you do with that special teams, and do you feel comfortable with everything going forward there?
Yeah, I would look to replace both of them. I don't think you can invest that many picks in it because you're so low on picks. And with last year's draft being a special teams draft, or however it was kind of marketed to the fans, I worry about 2 special teams drafts in a row for a team that is already so short on assets. Like, as part of the Russ deal, you don't have a lot of picks, you don't have a lot of money, and now Sean Payton deal compounds all that, except for the money bit. And now the tightrope you have to walk is so much more narrow. You have to be perfect on the assets you do have. And last year's draft is far from perfect. And this year, like, you can be perfect drafting kickers or kickers and punters, but you're not making up for how narrow that margin is. I think that you have to walk. So maybe it's undrafted players. You can definitely hit there, though I think it's risky. Maybe it's just some veteran options. But we're talking about a bottom 8 kicker and a bottom 8 punter, 2 guys that were in the bottom quarter of their position in the NFL. I think it's worth rolling the dice on a replacement level player, and you'll probably wind up with something better, or at the very worst, similar for cheaper, or in Corliss Waitman's case, the same price. There's no reason why not to roll the dice on a Corliss Waitman replacement. There's like no dead money. You're almost definitely going to find something better. If you find something that's the same, okay, you didn't spend any more money on it because it's probably a cheap option. So why not roll the dice and see if you turn up with something better? It really couldn't be worse. McManus is a little harder of a pill to swallow. Maybe you think he was just mentally thrown off or injured or something this past season, but he's making top 10 kicker money in, like I said, bottom quarter of the NFL at this point. So time to move on and see if you can find something that's less cost efficient, because you can't have your kicker making that margin even narrower when your margin is already so narrow, and that cost inefficiency currently is doing that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zach. I think I would want to look for replacements at both positions. Honestly, none of them played good enough for me to validate, like, this is definitely your spot going forward. That's just not something that happened. It isn't. Now, the draft, I always struggle with this. Drafting them, I wouldn't. I just don't see the reward in it, really. Like, what's the big reward I hit on if it works? Compared to just going out to sign a lower tier guy, the risk and reward factor for draft versus free agency, it seems like I would definitely lean free agency because the risk is so much higher in draft. Like that's just my opinion. When you can go out there and sign a veteran dude on a lower contract and get stuff out of it, like that's just the way I would go there. Definitely in free agency. Do you fall on a similar boat there? I know you did.
That's a good point. I thought that really sold. I thought that was a strong point.
Okay, cool. I was just curious. I was thinking about that on the spot, truthfully. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Let's go. Do you feel there's a difference in awkwardness if the Broncos hire Vance Joseph as if there would have been had they brought back Fangio's DC? So I'm sure this is just like, do you think there's a difference in between the awkwardness between Fangio and Joseph, or do you think it's like the same, or is it awkward at all, Zach?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference in it. I think both are kind of awkward situations. One, Vance Joseph was longer ago, there's way less carryover in terms of the roster. Vic Fangio was literally just a year ago. Vance Joseph was 4. And in NFL timelines, like Vance Joseph was a whole mini era ago. Like people were doing entirely different stuff. Like different things were all the rage on offense. Different things were all the rage on defense. The personnel was a good bit different. Like Justin Simmons is a carryover. But who else is? Like it'd have to be a 2018 draft pick. I'm trying to think. Sutton, but he's not on that defensive side of the ball. Like there's not a lot. So on that aspect alone, it's less awkward. Then the players liked Vance Joseph a lot better than Vic Fangio. There was never a point where like a veteran player like cursed out Vance Joseph in front of the entire team. Like there wasn't a mutiny against Vance Joseph the way there was Vic Fangio. So yeah, I think it would definitely be less awkward. I think you're also getting a lesser coach.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Maybe a little awkward. I don't know, man. Like I just feel like these guys are, I will say probably more awkward. I will also say it shouldn't. That's what I will say. It should not. It really shouldn't. You guys are like, these people are paid the coach. He's happy to come back. Both of them are happy to come back. The players are all upset about him. What's going on here? It's stupid to me. It doesn't make any sense. You guys are
to work with people
playing
like
football here, and these guys are coaching here. It is what it is. Unless you really, really think they're a terrible coach, in which case then you also disagree with Sean Payton. In which case you also disagree with the GM and everybody like that and the ownership group. So who's in the wrong here? I wonder. That's my thing.
I think everyone's paid to do a job. But I think a lot of people, will take issue with their boss or take issue with a coworker or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you're being paid to do that job, but you can still recognize an issue with someone. And I think if there were, combustive issues in terms of the relationship with one of the coaches, and there was a relief felt when that coach was removed from the equation, and then he's brought back, like, yeah, that's awkward. I disagree with you that like it shouldn't be awkward. I could see an argument for like that shouldn't be an insurmountable obstacle. That shouldn't impact the decision, like whatever. But I think it's just human nature that it's awkward. Like I think we could all put ourselves in similar positions in our job. Like if I was in that spot, I think it'd be a little maybe awkward's not the right word, but uncomfortable. Frustrating. Like I don't take issue with the players feeling that way. I think that's normal.
Zach, does it not feel like a lot more of the awkwardness is coming from one side?
Well, yeah, because Fangio is so
question.
apathetic about people's emotions that he won't be awkward at all. Why would he care? I think the players would be like, are you fucking kidding me?
but we're talking like Vance Joseph would come here, and I'm sure even then, like these guys, it just feels like to me why is there? I feel like we just have this persona of Vic Fangio, of that's what he is. I just don't know if that's really the case, man. It's just, I really, really don't. It really feels sometimes like
it's not there's like I know you like really Vic Fangio, but there's a lot of good sourcing, and then just like his general personality and media availability during his tenure as a coordinator.
But then that's also us scrubbing out all the people that loved him. Because think about every single tenure before the Broncos, every single one. Literally
I think people could love him as a defensive coordinator, and I could see him being hired and it eventually working out. But people were annoyed with him as a head coach in Denver by the end of it. And I don't think it's totally a foreign concept to see like how that could be awkward. Like the boss you really didn't like and you thought got fired actually comes back and is your boss again.
And I agree. I do agree that there could definitely and should be a little awkwardness. I just don't think like at my day job, I'm like live tweeting about how I hate my boss. But let's move on to the next conversation here.
To back you up, your boss, or just like the average boss, the average annoying boss, probably isn't as accomplished as Vic Fangio is. Like, this is a case where it's like, okay, you might be annoyed with him, but it's Vic fucking Fangio.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is like a one podcast thing. Whenever Zach and I come on here, we have to get a Vic Fangio argument in. Is there any Rooney Rule for coordinator positions? If not, why the heck are they interviewing Vance Joseph? Zach, take it away. I know you're a little higher on Vance Joseph than some are in Broncos country.
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not in my free time breaking down Cardinals all 22, which is why I asked Robbie. I have to go back and look. I didn't see him respond, but I'm wondering if he did, because I really trust Robbie's schematic knowledge, and he really is watching the 32 teams. But listening to like Nate Tice and Robert Mays and Mina Kimes, who I trust to help me kind of stay in touch what's happening around the NFL. And, you know, I think Robert Mays did a profile on Vance Joseph a couple years ago, entering that 2021 season. I've been impressed with him in 2020 and 2021. The Cardinals had top 10 defenses in terms of DVOA, and outside of maybe safety purely because of Budda Baker, I don't think they have a single top 10 position group. I think they're very talent poor. The fact that he could consistently coach that unit up, and the first year, the years where the unit was bad, where the defense was, I think, and I would even struggle to call it bad because I think they just played to their talent level. I think they just played to their talent level. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. That was his first year there, so he's installing the system, and then that's his last year where I think everyone saw this Cardinals team kind of the wheels fall off. So I don't know. I need to become more familiar with his scheme, totally, but I look at a really bad defensive front with bad pass rushing talent outside of when he had Hassan Reddick for a couple seasons. A really questionable linebacking room with, a lot of assets poured into it, but guys that cannot play the linebacking position. A really, really shoddy cornerback group where it's like, you've got Jalen Thompson at least, and then Budda Baker. It was Budda Baker and a bunch of Jags, and he got 2 top 10 defensive seasons out of it. That impresses me in and of itself. He is a guy where his players have really liked him as a DC. And like I said, just hearing how other national analysts have gushed about him and his ability to create or coach up players and create like great team chemistry. That was something that I think Mays and Kimes both highlighted, just how I'm trying to think of the right word, in sync the entire Cardinals defense was, and how they were able to run some heavy disguised, more complex stuff because they were all so in sync and also on the same page, and they all knew what each other were going to do or expected to do on a certain play. And it was like a simple form of complexity he was able to pull off and all of that. And I don't know, that just impresses me. Something I definitely need to do more research on, but from what I've heard secondhand, I like him.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm not going to disagree with anything you're saying. My whole thing here is just like, I feel like to be then re-promoted again to a head coach, or not promoted, but to earn that job again, or to think that you are worth it compared to some of the other candidates we have, right? Because it's all in comparison. I would like to say that. We got Desai, Rex Ryan. These are all guys I really like. I worry if, like, at what point do you do like actual, like, what, how that defense is produced matters. Like, it has not been consistent. He has had good years here and there, but it has not been a consistent thing for him compared to some of these other guys. Like Rex Ryan was as consistent as it gets when he was the defensive coordinator. He was awesome. Now he's been out of football for a little bit for sure.
Hasn't been consistent in the last decade.
What was that?
Hasn't been consistent in the last decade.
Well, he hasn't really coached for a while, right?
That's my point.
But that's what I said. I agree.
I know. I'm just saying, like
how much of that, Zach?
Underlining it.
But how much of that do you try? Like, so he was consistent when he was a football coach. He's been out of football for a while. You bring him in for an interview, and then if he's the favorite, I mean, I'm going to trust Sean Payton on that one, because it is interesting that they brought him in for an interview. It didn't sound like he was a favorite at the time. They talked to him, and then all of a sudden the Broncos love him. What does that kind of tell you? Tells me that that they like whatever he was going in. They don't think he's fallen off that map.
You could use this exact same argument for Mike Nolan, though. Going back to the Dallas situation, you could have gone, well, okay, yes, Mike Nolan has been away from the game. Haven't seen him be a defensive coordinator in a minute. But when he was a defensive coordinator, he was a pretty good one. And Mike McCarthy knows his stuff. Mike McCarthy's coming into this situation. He knows his stuff. This is a championship NFL coach. I trust his evaluation of Mike Nolan. And then the Cowboys defense was visibly the worst coached in football, and it was abhorrent. And Mike Nolan was one and done as a result. And it's probably the biggest blemish on the second stint of Mike McCarthy's head coaching career. Now that's an extreme failure, but I just think it goes to show, I don't think we can just trust it at face value. I do have a lot more faith in the Rex Ryan situation. I think I've warmed up to it, and maybe I'd even prefer it over VJ. But yeah, I think both of those are good options. I feel solid about just about all of the defensive coordinator candidates I've heard. I don't have a clear ranking. I'm like, I feel good about all of them. But and also, I know we're disagreeing on VJ. I think we'd both agree 0% of him being interviewed has to do with the Rooney Rule. He is being interviewed for, I believe, every vacant defensive coordinator position in the NFL. If that's not the case, it sure as heck feels like it. And there's reason for that. People are very impressed with what he did at Arizona. The initial rumor was that they were just going to promote him to be the head coach to take over for Cliff. And I think them bringing in a new GM kind of changed that feeling. And then the GM brought in a guy that he had a good relationship with. But yeah, I just I don't know. I think Vance Joseph is a very talented head coach, and he's going to get a defensive coordinator job somewhere in this cycle.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. He will. I don't know. Just okay. Where would you rank him on your list there, Zach? Like if you had a little bit of a list going, like
I'd have to
at the top of your list.
I'd have to see him list it out again. I know Robbie had it.
I'll ask you this then. I'll just throw a couple candidates at you, and you tell me this guy or VJ. Do you like Sean Desai or Vance Joseph more?
Man, I really don't have clear rankings. They're all just kind of in a mush to me. I like
Sean Desai more.
I might go with Sean Desai more. I feel like I like that I've seen a little more defensive coordinating out of Vance Joseph. And I will say the fact that he had
has not been
awful talent in Arizona. He had really bare bones talent. And to go back to the margin stuff, the Broncos are going to be walking some slim margins these next few years. The fact he had bare bones talent in Arizona and still produced some top end defenses, or at the very least,
some sprinkled, right?
That's half the time.
Yes, but when do you hire an offensive coordinator?
How about this?
That just had sprinkled in good offenses, or like it's not. That's not very impressive to me.
Who had better defensive talent in 2020 and 2021? Vic Fangio or Vance Joseph?
I mean, are we talking about the end of that Vic Fangio stuff? I mean, I don't know if you remember.
2020 and 2021, the second and third year.
I mean, probably Vic Fangio, but it started that way.
I'd definitely say Vic Fangio. And both those seasons, Vance Joseph had better defenses in terms of DVOA. And that's not the end-all, be-all. And I get that. But I do think that is a testament to his coaching ability.
Okay. I don't want to get back in the Vic Fangio conversation.
Fair,
why do we always have to compare everyone to Vic Fangio?
Because he's a very good defensive coordinator. He's a great defensive coordinator. He's also in the running.
Spurs me into fucking action, Zach.
I'm not
every single
trying to
time.
attack your boy. I'm not trying to attack your mans. I'm not coming at your mans. I'm underlining why I think Vance Joseph is a good coach. I'm seeing Vic Fangio, someone who you and I think the thinking man, would be big Vic Fangio fans, and Vance Joseph, with I think far inferior talent, outperformed him in 2 of the 3 years that Vic Fangio was the head coach of the Denver Broncos in terms of DVOA.
This far inferior talent thing. Do you remember the Broncos edge room, the cornerback room? Like, that was bad.
Look at those Cardinals rosters, man. Those Cardinals rosters are, and
Devontae Bosby starting at corner.
The Broncos got beat down, but I'm talking about like the entire talent of the room.
But it doesn't matter if it does get beat down. They're not available.
I think it does. I think some of that.
How? Coaching. They're not playing.
Some of that coaching.
You think? Okay, but then explain this last year. The Broncos have been
why are you treating this as like you have to defend Vic Fangio? It's not a Vic
I'm not defending Vic Fangio. I'm talking about the Broncos roster versus the Cardinals roster. That's what I'm arguing.
Okay, Justin Simmons didn't miss a snap. Budda Baker, I don't think had that same Iron Man streak. That would be the only player on the Cardinals roster that could even compare to Justin Simmons. Any snaps that Vic Fangio got out of Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, should there have been a lot more of them? Oh, 1,000% there should have, and it sucks there wasn't. Was that or I guess he also had Chandler Jones. So fair there. Shelby Harris. Where's the Shelby Harris that Vance Joseph had to work with? Where's the Draymond Jones that he had to work with?
Draymond Jones was like
that he had to work with. Where's the Bryce Callahan that he had to work with? Where's the Ronald Darby that he had to work with?
Name 6 players on that Cardinals defense just in general?
Where's the Kareem Jackson on the Cardinals? They're not there.
I mean, I need to pull up a roster. This is a conversation for another day because I know the Broncos roster. We both know. We don't know the Cardinals roster because we don't cover the Cardinals. That's something I don't. I know Chandler Jones. I know Budda Baker. I know. Was Patrick Peterson was around then?
No, he wasn't.
See, I don't know. We would have to go back and look, but it's fine.
But that's my point. They have really bad defensive talent. It's not good. It's not like there's a reason why, the NFL. I think other NFL rosters, especially when we're doing free agency previews and whatnot. Both of us, I think, would struggle to name a lot of Cardinals defenders. And I don't think that's an anomaly. And there were these no-name defenses that he got a lot of performance out of. That's really my thing. I wasn't trying to, I guess, get hung up on the versus Vic Fangio or versus Denver Broncos of it all. If we want to say the Broncos were even lower in the bottom 5 talented defenses by the end of the Fangio reign, fine. I'm not even arguing the Fangio thing. My point was more, he had very bad talent and got better results, considerably better than defensive coaching legend in 2 of the 3 years. I think that's a good coaching job. And Vic, I see the comment saying, I hate Vic. I don't. I would have liked him back as DC in a vacuum. I think it's a messy situation in Denver. I think he's an awesome DC. I'm sad it didn't work in Denver. I was one of the biggest Vic Fangio defenders while he was here. But okay, my parents got divorced. I don't want them to get back together. I love them both very much. Stay apart. It's cool. This worked out for a reason, and they can be happy with other people and it'd be great for them. Don't get back together. It's like the divorce happened for a reason,
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next thing here. And it's from you, Zach. Who are 3 of your favorite Broncos of all time?
I think I go, this is my era, definitely. I love Terrell Davis just because I grew up watching the old NFL films clips of that legendary Broncos era. And I just love the running back position, and he's the GOAT for the Broncos, so he makes the list. But then it's DT and Von Miller, who I think are the offensive player and defensive player that most capture my era of Broncos fandom. Those are the 2 that stand out to me. I wish I could say Champ Bailey because he's just so awesome and amazing, but I don't have that many Champ Bailey memories. I remember I really started becoming a diehard fan in 2007, and even then I was a little kid. I think by the time I was a knowledgeable fan, I had missed the best of Champ Bailey, and so he doesn't have quite the same spot that a Von Miller or a DT do.
This is funny. D-Bronx says, 3 of my favorite Broncos, George Payton, PS2 in the absence of Justin Fields. That's funny. That's a good comment. Colton Cooper chimes in. He says, Champ, Bailey, Von Miller, DT. I love it. Yeah, I would personally go. So when I first really started getting into football heavy, the Broncos weren't very good, but they had an all-pro Ryan Clady at left tackle. And me and my dad would sit there and literally just focus on what Ryan Clady was doing to zone out the rest of what was happening in the game. So Ryan Clady was one of my favorites of all time, just memories attached to that as well. And then DT is my favorite Bronco of all time. He's the reason I love NFL scouting, everything like that. DT is awesome. And then I go Von Miller. Those are my 3 favorites. Von for obvious reasons. Who did not love Von? Von was a fantastic, fantastic football player, and he was here for so long. I wanted him to retire a Bronco so bad. That whole situation is sad. But I would go Champ Bailey right after that.
I love that. I think that's a great list. The Ryan Clady answer is I can tell it's how you know Joey's a true football nerd, a diehard. I'm curious.
Broncos what ifs, man. If Ryan Clady did not get hurt, I'm telling you, one of the biggest Broncos what ifs people don't really talk about.
I'm curious, and I kind of think there's an obvious answer here, but is there a player currently on the Broncos that you could see joining that top 3, knocking one of those people out?
I think there's 2 names that people like most Broncos fans would throw out: Justin Simmons or Patrick Surtain. You're right. Those are the 2 that I think could get people there. I don't think Simmons is one of the best safeties in all of football. I don't know if he's good enough to crack.
There's something about the safety position, to me at least. I feel like, or at least maybe it's not the safety position, but I don't know if he'll ever be in that.
Well, because he's phenomenal, but he's not Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. And then Ryan Clady, I just throw in because of the memories attached of all of that. You know, everybody else on that is like, oh, we're talking about legends, Hall of Famers. You know, that's common there. But PS2, I mean, he has a shot for sure. He has a shot to get in there for a lot of people. I imagine if kids just getting into football right now, Broncos, I mean, PS2 is the dude to them right now. I'm so confident about that. PS2 is the guy. So I would say him. Outside of that,
I'm with you on PS2.
I don't think anybody. Do you think there's anybody else?
PS2, and then I think Judy or Dulcich could get there. I doubt it. I doubt it. Be clear. I think they could. Or Javonte. I think those are the 3 that are on the watch list. I think all of them have long odds because, like you said, we're talking legend, like all-time great. But if Dulcich blossoms, and I think for a rookie tight end, he had a really promising season. Like if he blossoms into like, you know, an all-time great time, but it's hard. You'd have to outdo Shannon Sharp and the personality and everything. Probably won't happen there.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not Dulcich, but Judy, I could see. He's got the personality. Like if he really racks it up down the stretch, and he's got a lot of ground to make up. But if he really like just becomes that dude, I could see him and PS2 being to the next era what DT and Vaughn were to our era.
Yeah, and you know who else could be thrown? Not from changing the topic a little bit. I'll respond to yours first. Let's think. I doubt, and you also said you doubt it. They're in that same tier where it's like they're fantastic and phenomenal. They both could be phenomenal football players. Will they be good enough? I don't think so. That's the way I kind of lean. They could be really, really good, just not maybe Hall of Famers. You know, that's a tall task. There's such good football players on the Hall of Fame. Aqib Talib was also very fun when he was Bronco. I'm talking about one of the most entertaining people that's ever wore a Broncos jersey. Yeah.
So I want to comment on what Cal's saying here. Cal's saying Judy's like wet leaves. Judy has been hit, and Surtain too have been hit by the Nick Saban ray. I'm telling you, I've seen this up close for myself in the locker room. Alabama brainwashes you. I think the Patriots do it too, and they teach you how to not talk to the media, and they turn you into a robot whenever a camera gets put on you or a microphone gets put in front of you. And Judy has that. He is not the most magnetic guy in front of a camera. I also wonder if he has some anxiety or something. But when you're just like in the locker room trying to like grab audio for whatever or interview players to get quotes and everything, Judy is, I'd say maybe the most personable, like the most charismatic, the funniest guy in the locker room. It'd be him and Randy Gregory. Like the most gregarious people, I think, would be like Gordon, Gregory, Judy, Bowles, Reisner, like people like that. And all those other names are like, oh yeah, they're all always in front of the camera. You always see them on media stuff. They weren't brainwashed by Nick Saban. Like people know that if you interview Judy, you're not going to get good quotes or clips or anything. So they just don't do it. But I think you can see it on like the TikTok stuff where I think they're like touring his locker and KJ Hamler comes up. Like there's glimmers of it where you get to see it, but he is a really funny guy. I like his personality. I wish the fans got to see it more.
Totally. And let's go. Zach, are you going to
what brings out my personality?
Zach, it's Friday night. I know what I am drinking. I am going to drink a Weinsteffen Hefeweiss beer. There's not much of the Fest beer left, or I probably would grab a Fest. That's my favorite, but I will talk about the Hef because the Hef is year round and it's fantastic. Coming from literally the oldest brewery in the entire world. So like, yes. Please go grab one. It is the benchmark wheat style beer in the whole United States. It's amazing. It's 5.4% ABV. You're going to get a little hazy, a little, fruity. It's an effervescent beer. It's fantastic. It is amazing. Zach, will you also be having one tonight?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Everyone should have some Weinsteffen. I know Frankie's a big fan. We're all on the Weinsteffen train over at LTB. Get this one. It's a lot better than Signables. This is a really good beer.
You should get Signables. No, and I swear, well before this, I have a Weinsteffen shirt in my closet. I'll wear it for the next podcast. I don't know why I haven't yet, but I actually drink this beer. It's awesome. It's an awesome beer. Please, everybody in the chat, go grab some. But last question of the day, Zach, did you see that DK play of him? Not the play, but the thing of him jumping that high.
Yes, I believe you're talking about the.
Okay.
Where it looks like he jumps 90 inches into.
Let's watch it one more time. You
have to unmute again. Sorry, Jerry.
This is absolutely fake.
This is 100% fake. Is
this video of DK fake? And please, everybody in the chat, let us know. That's not real.
Comment. If you're watching live now, comment. We need a live poll before we put our insight too much. We've said we think it's fake. Cal is annoyed that we're doing this content. Too bad, Cal. Do you think the DK video is fake?
It's absolutely fake. It's not real. I feel bad for everybody falling for it on the timeline right now. DK is an absolute freak, but that's space alien. If he was able to do that, it's space alien.
Where was that in a game? Where was that at the combine when millions of dollars were on the line? Can you imagine if you jumped like that? Like he wasn't shy about doing all the other crazy combine stuff. Why not do that? He's got a 40.5-inch vertical. That video shows him jumping
which is insane.
60 inches, which is like 50% better than his combine vertical. Do we really think he's like improved that much? Like 50% as an athlete since like he entered the NFL as an elite college athlete? It's definitely some sort of guerrilla marketing. I don't know what it's promoting. Maybe he's coming up in the next like Madden ad. I doubt he'd be the cover athlete, but maybe they're about to announce it and there'll be a clip of DK Metcalf like jumping for some crazy red zone touchdown or something like that. But this is a fake video. This is some sort of marketing for something. I don't know what the gain out of it is yet, but I would say with 100% certainty it's fake.
And you remember during the COVID time when there wasn't a scouting combine and everybody was doing those fake, or not fake, but they were doing the virtual combines? That's what this reminds me of.
The crazy numbers.
At the pro day, 4.5, and then the virtual combine, it would just be like him starting to run, and then it would stop, and it would be a guy's clock showing like a 3.92. It would be ridiculous. But that's what that reminds me of. That's absolutely what that reminds me of. Who was the guy? It was Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor is the main culprit I'm looking at there. I need to look up exactly, but I mean, he was talking all that about, I'm going to outrun Henry Ruggs at the combine or whatever. I'm going to be the fastest guy in this receiving class. He absolutely failed that, did a virtual one. It was like, no, I told you guys, I ran like a 4.2.
It was faster than that. It was like a 4.1 or something.
It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy thing about that, the pick that the Eagles got for Jalen Reagor after they gave up on him, they then flipped and turned into Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which is absolutely crazy that they turned that bust into a really good safety.
Yes, exactly. Well, Zach, I think that does it for today's episode. This was a really fun episode. I appreciate everybody coming in the comments, arguing Vic Fangio with us yet again. And like, we're on series 9,000 of it, and we'll look forward to 9,001. If you guys have any more questions on the Vic Fangio period, hit me up. But Zach, where can they find your amazing work, man?
Yeah, find it over on Twitter at Zach_Seegers and over at milehighsports.com. And I want to give a special little shout out for this weekend. Saturday night, if you have Pac-12 Network, I know like a lot of people don't, but if you do, or no, not Saturday night, I'm sorry, Sunday. I'll see if I can find the time, but Sunday, look up the time. If you're watching this or listening to this, you have access to the internet. The women's basketball team, which is playing some phenomenal basketball right now. It's honestly a really, really fun watch. Is number 21 going up against number 18 Arizona. It's going to be a great game. I'm really excited for it. I'm going to be like live tweeting it and writing up a game recap. So watch that game. It's going to be a great athletic event, and follow along with me at Zach_Seegers.
Yeah, please go check out all of Zach's work. Everyone, please follow me at JR Drafts on Twitter. Make sure you're keeping up with the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube page. We're posting clips. We have Robbie's breakdowns on there. We have like playlists. People can go through and watch all of our videos if you want. We're really getting on that heavy. And then everyone, please make sure you're checking out Frankie and I's episode. We did one yesterday. We looked over offensive free agents. Frankie had amazing analysis on all of them. We talked through every single position and who some of our favorite guys are in that. Other than that, yeah, everyone, please follow me don't follow me. Find all my work at Mile High Sports. But until next time, guys, go Broncos.